Imagine for a moment standing right at the edge of the Amazon rainforest. It's not just dense, it's this overwhelmingly wild, seemingly impenetrable green ocean, just stretching out to the horizon, so vast it's almost hard to wrap your head around. And for centuries, the narrative we were all told, the image really ingrained in our minds, was that this huge expanse was, pristine wilderness, largely untouched by any large-scale human civilization. The common wisdom, passed down through generations of explorers, even in academic circles, was that the Amazon was simply too harsh, too unforgiving. People talked about its acidic soils, the relentless growth, the challenging climate. Basically, that it was impossible for complex societies to ever truly thrive there. It was seen as this ecological barrier, a place where maybe only small nomadic groups could kind of eke out an existence.
That was definitely the prevailing view for a very long time. And it seemed logical based on what was known or thought to be known about tropical environments, especially compared to, say, the river valleys of Mesopotamia or Egypt, where early civilizations were recognized. The acidic soils, the sheer density of the jungle, it all seemed to argue against large settled populations needing intensive agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, running parallel to this scientific consensus, there was this other story, a story woven from whispers, from these enduring legends that honestly fueled explorers' dreams for centuries. I mean, think about the fabled El Dorado, the City of Gold, or the mysterious lost city of Z that Percy Fawcett was obsessed with. These were tales that just captivated adventurers, drawing them deep into the jungle, totally convinced that these grand civilizations were hidden there somewhere.
Absolutely. Those legends were powerful motivators. But for so long, they were largely dismissed by the academic world as just fanciful myths. Because, well, where was the proof? Where were the big stone cities? It seemed impossible given the environment, especially those supposedly infertile acidic soils. The thinking was they couldn't possibly sustain large, settled populations needed for cities. So the idea of advanced urbanism in the Amazon was frankly scoffed at.
Right. It felt like a wild goose chase, didn't it? An explorer's fever dream.
Yeah.
You had these incredibly brave or maybe crazy people trekking through, convinced they'd find something monumental. And when they didn't come back with hard evidence, it just seemed to confirm, yeah, nothing there.
Precisely. The scientific community, quite reasonably given the lack of traditional archaeological evidence like those massive stone structures you see elsewhere, viewed these accounts with, well, immense skepticism. The absence of that kind of visible proof seemed to perfectly confirm the ecological arguments. So you had this big gap, this chasm between the folklore, the sometimes tantalizing reports from early European contact, and what archaeology could actually demonstrate on the ground.
Okay, so let's unpack this. For so long, the story of the Amazon was one of untouched nature, a place where complex societies simply couldn't exist. But what if everything we thought we knew was wrong?
Well, that's what's so fascinating now. Modern science, particularly new technologies, are finally catching up. They're starting to validate some of those whispers of history, those accounts that were once just dismissed as folklore. This deep dive, I think, will really show you just how much we're still learning about the ingenuity and the resilience of ancient peoples, is forcing us to completely reevaluate some deeply held assumptions.
So our mission today is exactly that. To challenge those very assumptions, we're going to explore how cutting-edge technology and these incredible recent archaeological breakthroughs are not just adding a footnote, they are fundamentally rewriting the history of the Amazon. We're talking about revealing a vibrant past full of sophisticated urban ingenuity that existed for, well, millennia. A past that was just hidden in plain sight. We'll be looking at specific sources detailing these discoveries, pulling out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights for you, sort of peeling back those layers of misconception.
And this deep dive really highlights a profound shift, I think, in how we understand human interaction with these so-called extreme environments. For such a long time, both the academic world and the popular imagination held that the Amazon, while incredibly rich in biodiversity, just couldn't support dense populations or complex urban centers. The logic often came back to the soil quality. Those soils are often acidic, nutrient poor, at least in their natural state. So large-scale, sustained agriculture seemed impossible.
Which meant any people living there had to be, what, nomadic? Or just in tiny scattered villages, basically adapting to the forest but never really changing it on a large scale.
That was the assumption, yes. Adapting to, but never truly transforming the landscape in a major way. The very idea of complex societies, building cities, engineering their environment, it almost felt contradictory to this idea of environmental determinism.
It's pretty astonishing how deeply ingrained that belief was, even right up into modern times. You saw it in textbooks, documentaries, popular culture, this image of an untouched, relatively empty wilderness. And it really shaped our understanding of human history in the Americas, didn't it? It created this really stark contrast between, say, the monumental civilizations of the Andes or Mesoamerica and this supposedly pristine, less developed Amazon.
It did, and it made those stories from explorers seem even more outlandish. The lack of visible, hard evidence in that traditional archaeological sense, vast stone pyramids easily visible, led mainstream archaeology to conclude the stories had to be exaggerations or fabrications. The underlying assumption remained. The environmental constraints, especially the soils, just couldn't sustain the intensive agriculture needed for big populations or the kind of durable architecture associated with civilization as it was understood then.
So the myths kind of persisted, but without proof, they stayed in the realm of folklore, not history.
Exactly. It created the significant gap between maybe local oral traditions, those early European accounts, and the accepted scientific understanding. And it's a gap that modern technology is now closing and closing rapidly.
Okay, so then something changed. A quiet revolution started, not down in the jungle muck, but high above it. Which brings us to that fundamental question. How do you find something that's been swallowed by centuries of just relentless jungle growth, hidden beneath a canopy so thick it literally blocks out the sun?
The answer, incredibly, came from the sky. It raises an important question. How do you find something that's been swallowed by centuries of jungle growth? The answer, incredibly, came from the sky, with technology that quite literally peels back the canopy. The technology is LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging.
LiDAR. Okay, I've heard of it, but how does it actually work in this context? How does it see through trees?
Well, simply put, LiDAR systems, usually mounted on aircraft, fire billions of laser pulses down towards the ground. Billions. These pulses travel at the speed of light, they penetrate through the gaps in the dense forest canopy, hit the actual ground beneath, and then bounce back to the sensor on the aircraft. By measuring the tiny, tiny fraction of a second it takes for each pulse to make that round trip, the system can calculate the precise distance. And when you do that millions or billions of times over an area, you build up an incredibly detailed 3D map of the terrain itself.
But what about all the leaves and branches? Don't they interfere?
They do, but that's the clever part. Some pulses hit leaves, some hit branches, but enough pulses make it all the way through the gaps to the ground. And sophisticated algorithms, along with spectral analysis, allow researchers to filter out the returns from the vegetation, the tree canopy data points.
What's left is a map of the bare earth beneath, revealing the topography with an amazing level of precision, down to just a few centimeters sometimes.
So you can see subtle earthworks, old foundations, roads, canals, things completely invisible from the ground, or even from regular aerial photos which just show the tops of the trees.
Wow, so it's not just a general map. It's like having geological X-ray vision for the jungle floor, revealing these faint scars of human activity underneath everything. And LiDAR provided the first indisputable objective evidence then. Proof that these myths weren't entirely myths after all.
Exactly. It showed us that beneath that green blanket, it wasn't just pristine wilderness. There were these subtle, often geometric impressions of human habitation, and on an enormous scale in some places. It finally offered concrete, measurable proof that sophisticated, large-scale societies did indeed thrive in the Amazon. It completely upended everything we thought we knew about the region's human history. This wasn't just a discovery, it was really a reframing of an entire continent's past.
That's incredible. So where did they first really see this in action? Where did this technology lead to a major breakthrough?
The application of LiDAR in archaeology has been transformative globally, but maybe nowhere more so than in the Amazon, simply because the vegetation problem was so extreme, it bypassed that historical barrier. And one of the first places where it yielded absolutely stunning results was in Ecuador's Upano Valley.
The Upano Valley.
Okay.
Okay, what did they find there?
Well, this wasn't just a small village or two. LiDAR revealed a sprawling network of interconnected settlements, an entire urban system hidden beneath the trees. The scale is just mind-boggling. We're talking about over 6,000 rectangular earthen platforms.
6,000. What were these platforms?
They seem to have served as the elevated foundations for homes and also for ceremonial spaces. Building on raised ground makes sense in an area that likely experienced seasonal wetness. But what's really striking is how they were arranged. Not randomly scattered, they were often grouped in distinct geometric patterns, sometimes clustered around central plazas. It strongly suggests meticulous and deliberate planning. This wasn't just organic, haphazard growth. It looks like a thoughtfully designed, large-scale urban landscape, built primarily from earth, not stone. And the structural consistency of the geometric layouts. It speaks volumes about the Yupano culture's social organization, their engineering capabilities. Maybe even their cosmological beliefs were embedded in the layout, which we see in many ancient cultures. These weren't just random mounds, they were precisely constructed platforms. The sheer number points to a very large organized workforce, which implies a complex social hierarchy capable of coordinating these massive construction projects. Imagine the labor needed to move literally millions of cubic meters of earth.
Wow, okay, so thousands of planned platforms.
Right.
You said interconnected. How were they connected?
This is maybe even more fascinating. Connecting these settlements were incredibly straight roads. Some of these roads stretched an astonishing 25 kilometers. That's over 15 miles.
15 miles. Straight roads through the jungle.
Exactly. Think about the effort, the precision, the sheer coordination required to build roads that long and that straight. Traversing what would have been challenging terrain, all without modern surveying equipment. And these weren't just simple trails. Some were engineered thoroughfares, apparently up to 10 meters wide in places, sometimes with ditches running alongside them, perhaps for drainage. This isn't just a collection of villages, it's a fully interconnected urban system, an ancient highway network binding these communities together. It absolutely challenges our notion of what an ancient city could look like, especially in the Amazon.
Yeah, and connecting this to the bigger picture, having such extensive and precisely laid out road networks implies a significant degree of, well, maybe centralized authority, or at least a highly coordinated social structure. Roads are the arteries of communication, trade, movement. Their presence on this scale indicates a highly integrated society. Strong economic ties, social links, maybe even political connections between these settlements. It's really a hallmark of advanced civilization, regardless of the building materials.
It suggests a shared vision, a collective effort on a scale we previously thought impossible for this region.
So who were these incredible people? The Yupano culture. When did they live?
The Yupano culture appears to have flourished from approximately 500 BCE to around 600 CE, so that's over a millennium. More than 1,000 years, this society thrived, adapting, building, evolving.
1,000 years is a long time. And how many people are we talking about? Was it sparsely populated like the old theories suggested?
Not at all. The sources discussing this suggest tens of thousands of people lived here. That kind of population density definitively challenges that old idea of a sparsely populated Amazon. This was clearly a vibrant, populous region for a very long time.
Tens of thousands, living in planned settlements connected by long roads for over 1,000 years. Here's where it gets really interesting. We're not just talking about a few scattered villages. We're talking about a vast, connected urban system, meticulously planned, thriving for over a millennium. And to really drive home the significance, our sources compare their complexity. They say it rivaled the Maya.
That's a powerful comparison. The Maya are, of course, one of the high points of ancient American civilization, known for their monumental stone cities, their writing, math, astronomy. So to put the Yupano, with their earthen architecture and road networks, in that same league, it's based on the sheer scale, the societal organization, the population estimates, and their ability to engineer their environment so effectively.
It's groundbreaking. It forces us to really broaden our definition of what high civilization looked like in the Americas. It wasn't just stone pyramids. And they even found evidence they were making chicha, the fermented drink.
Yes, traces related to chicha brewing were found, which points to their agricultural practices like growing maize, but also hints at their social and ritual life. Feasting, ceremonies. It adds another layer to understanding their culture. And connecting this to the bigger picture, that comparison to the Maya isn't made lightly. It suggests sophisticated political structures may have existed, maybe extensive trade networks connecting communities, and definitely a level of societal organization that allowed for this kind of monumental engineering, even if it was Earth-based. Their mastery of the environment, the scale of the urban planning, the hydraulic engineering implied. It's truly exceptional. It forces us to totally reevaluate the limits of human adaptation in the Amazon.
Right. And you mentioned agriculture. They weren't just foraging, they were farmers.
Oh, absolutely. They were cultivating crops on an intensive scale. Evidence points to staples like maize, cassava, and sweet potatoes. These would have been the foundation of their diet, supporting those large populations. But it's how they farmed that's really impressive. They used advanced engineering for food production.
How so? What kind of engineering?
The sources mention raised fields and canals. This wasn't just planting seeds in cleared patches. This was actively managing water and soil in a challenging environment, one that likely had both very wet and dry seasons. Raised fields, often built up in long mounds, provide better drainage during heavy rains, preventing crops from flooding and reducing soil erosion. They also warm up faster, potentially extending the growing season. And canals. Well, intricate networks of canals could have been used for irrigation during drier periods, ensuring a steady water supply, or possibly even for aquaculture, raising fish or other aquatic resources.
Wow, that sounds incredibly sophisticated. A deep understanding of agronomy, hydrology.
Exactly. It's a truly adaptive and likely very sustainable farming system. These raised fields and canals are clear evidence of deliberate, intensive land modification for agriculture. This is a world away from the simple slash-and-burn horticulture sometimes associated with the Amazon. This complex system allowed for sustained high yields, which is absolutely necessary if you're going to feed tens of thousands of people for centuries. It shows an environmental adaptation that involved transforming their landscape, not just using it passively. It completely refutes that old idea that the Amazon was too harsh for large-scale, complex agriculture. It demonstrates this active, intelligent interaction with their ecosystem.
Okay, so that's the Upano Valley in Ecuador. An incredible discovery. But it wasn't the only one, right? LIDAR started revealing things elsewhere, too.
That's right. Let's shift our focus now over to Bolivia, to the vast tropical savannas of the Llanos de Mojos. Here, archaeologists uncovered evidence of another sophisticated pre-Columbian society, the Casarabe culture. They thrived a bit later than the Upano, generally dated between 500 and 1400 CE.
The Casarabe culture. And was their settlement style similar to the Upano?
It was different, actually. While the Upano Valley showed this network of settlements, maybe like garden cities, the Casarabe culture presented a unique approach that archaeologists are calling low-density urbanism. It's a different blueprint for a city, seemingly adapted to a different environment. These Llanos de Mojos are vast wetlands, prone to significant seasonal flooding.
Low-density urbanism. What does that look like?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the Casarabe culture also built monumental structures. But they were spread out across an absolutely immense area, something like 1,700 square miles. Their distinctive structures included impressive conical pyramids, often earthen, reaching maybe 20 meters high. These seem to have been central points for settlements. And alongside these, LIDAR revealed these intricate networks of moats and causeways.
Moats and causeways, what were they for?
The moats likely had multiple functions. Maybe defense, but probably also crucial for water management in an area with dramatic seasonal flooding. They could control water levels, maybe even use them for raising fish or collecting fertile sediment. And the causeways, raised earthen roads, essentially were vital. Some extended for miles, connecting different settlement areas, ceremonial centers, and agricultural zones. They allowed people to move around, to transport goods, to maintain communication across this vast wetland environment, which would have been largely impassable during the wet season otherwise.
And again, LIDAR was the key to seeing all this.
Absolutely. It was LIDAR surveys that uncovered the true extent and complexity. They identified 24 distinct sites within this huge system, including 2 particularly large settlements, now named Cotoca and Landivar, which seem to have been major regional centers. But it wasn't just about finding the structures themselves, it was also about how they were laid out.
What was special about the layout?
The researchers noted that the careful, often geometric arrangement of the pyramids, plazas, causeways, and moats suggested something deeper than just practical function. They suggested it reflected a cosmological worldview. Meaning, their urban planning likely wasn't purely about survival or efficiency. It probably incorporated spiritual beliefs, maybe astronomical alignments, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of their place in the universe and integrating those beliefs directly into the physical world they built around them. The very architecture, the way they shaped the land, was likely an expression of their cosmos, their belief system.
That's profound, building their beliefs right into the landscape.
It is, and it raises that important question again. How could a civilization thrive for centuries, build these monumental structures, manage such a vast area in what was thought to be an infertile, flood-prone environment? The answer lies partly in that ingenious water management, the causeways, but also crucially in their approach to agriculture.
Right, because we keep coming back to that challenge of the supposedly infertile Amazonian soils. How did the Casarabe manage?
This brings us to one of the most incredible innovations, something truly revolutionary discovered in various parts of the Amazon, including areas associated with cultures like the Casarabe, Terra Preta.
Terra Preta, I've heard that term. Dark earth, right? What exactly is it?
Terra Preta do Indio, Indian dark earth. It's truly remarkable. It's not a naturally occurring soil type. It's a highly fertile soil that was created intentionally by humans over centuries. They transformed the naturally infertile, acidic Amazonian soils into incredibly productive agricultural land.
How did they make it?
It seems to be a result of accumulating organic waste kitchen scraps, fish bones, animal manure, along with large amounts of charcoal from cooking fires and controlled burns, and broken pottery shards, all deposited over long periods in specific areas, often middens or garden plots. The charcoal is really key. It doesn't decompose easily, so it creates this stable, porous structure in the soil. It acts like a permanent sponge, holding on to water and nutrients much, much better than the surrounding soils, which tend to leach nutrients very quickly in the high rainfall. This structure also fosters a thriving microbial community within the soil, which helps continually cycle and release nutrients. It becomes this self-sustaining, self-renewing super soil.
Wow. So it wasn't just accidental dumping. It was
Yeah.
a deliberate technique.
Yeah.
Ancient bioengineering.
The evidence strongly suggests it was deliberate, sustained management over generations, an ongoing process of enriching the soil, creating these pockets of intense fertility. It's a testament to their deep ecological understanding and incredible long-term planning.
So what does this all mean then for those old assumptions about the Amazon being unable to support large populations because of bad soil?
It completely demolishes that argument. It means they didn't just survive, they absolutely thrived. They thrived using this incredible self-sustaining farming technique. Terra Preta proves definitively that the region could support large populations, maybe even millions across the entire basin over time. It shows that the acidic soils weren't an insurmountable barrier. These ancient Amazonians didn't just adapt to their environment, they actively engineered it, profoundly altering its carrying capacity for the better. It's not just ingenious, it's profoundly sustainable. A lesson created centuries ago.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, Terra Preta is a testament to deep ecological understanding, long-term thinking, and maybe even a profound respect for the land. It's a form of agroecology that modern science is only just starting to fully appreciate and even try to replicate with things like biochar. And these Terra Preta soils are often still fertile today, hundreds or thousands of years later, a living legacy.
It demonstrates how ancient peoples could sustainably intensify food production in a tropical environment, challenging the notion that high population densities always lead to environmental degradation. It truly redefines what we thought was possible.
This is all incredible. We have these complex societies, advanced engineering, sustainable agriculture, which leads to a fascinating, though kind of tragic, reconciliation with history, doesn't it? Those early European accounts.
Exactly. Now we have to look back at those accounts from the very first Europeans who ventured into the Amazon. For centuries, they reported seeing things that just didn't fit the later narrative. Take, for instance, the chronicle written by Friar Gaspar de Carvajal. He accompanied Francisco de Orellana on that famous, or infamous, first European voyage down the entire length of the Amazon River in the 1540s.
Right, Orellana's voyage. What did Carvajal report seeing?
Carvajal's account, which, as we said, was often read with huge skepticism, described encountering thriving riverbank cities, vast towns, numerous complex societies with large populations all along the major riverbanks. He wrote about continuous settlements stretching for miles, sophisticated social structures, even organized warriors who attacked their expedition in large canoes. He painted a picture of a densely populated, highly organized landscape, not a pristine wilderness at all.
And, as we mentioned, for a very long time, those accounts were just dismissed,
Right.
seen as wild exaggerations.
Pretty much. Historians, anthropologists, many viewed them as exactly that. Gross exaggerations. Maybe tales spun by explorers to impress the Spanish crown to justify their expeditions, or maybe their imaginations just ran wild in that overwhelming environment. The question always lingered. How could such large, complex cities exist in what was believed to be an untouched jungle? The prevailing scientific view just didn't allow for it. It created this huge paradox. Now, with this irrefutable evidence from LIDAR revealing these extensive, long-lasting urban systems like those in the Upano Valley or the widespread settlements of the Casarabe, suddenly those once skeptically viewed observations by Carvajal and others are being directly validated by modern archaeology. It's a really powerful moment where history and archaeology are converging. These historical accounts, once considered almost fantasy, are finding concrete support in the ground, proving the early explorers were actually describing a remarkable reality.
Okay, so if these societies were so sophisticated, so populous, thriving for centuries, even millennia, why did they disappear? Why aren't these cities still bustling today? Why were they essentially erased from history, swallowed by the jungle, and forgotten for so long? It must lead us to a pretty tragic story.
It does. This brings us to a critical and frankly heartbreaking chapter. The rapid decline, the virtual disappearance of these sophisticated Amazonian societies. It wasn't because their systems failed. It wasn't environmental collapse caused by their own actions. It was overwhelmingly due to an external catastrophic shock. The primary culprits were disease and colonial disruption following European contact.
The impact of European diseases.
Yes. When Europeans arrived in the Americas, they unintentionally brought with them a host of pathogens, smallpox, measles, influenza, typhus, things like that. The indigenous populations of the Americas had been isolated for thousands of years and had absolutely no prior exposure and therefore no immunity to these diseases.
And the result was devastation.
Utter devastation. You have to imagine populations with no natural defenses. These diseases swept through communities like wildfire. Often, the epidemics traveled far ahead of the actual physical presence of Europeans, passed along existing indigenous trade networks. This led to massive demographic collapse. Estimates vary, but some suggest population losses of up to 90%, or even more in some regions, sometimes within just decades of initial contact.
90%. It's almost unimaginable. It's a powerful and frankly heartbreaking story. Imagine these cultures thriving for millennia, building these incredible societies, and then in such a relatively short time, they're just gone, decimated, swallowed by the forest. It makes you wonder, truly, what else was lost? Beyond the structures, beyond the lives, what knowledge, what stories, what traditions just vanished forever?
It's a profound loss, and the sheer scale of this demographic catastrophe had immediate cascading effects. It profoundly disrupted their established trade networks, their complex agricultural systems, those raised fields, the terra preta, which all required significant organized labor and knowledge passed down through generations. Their intricate social and political structures likely crumbled under the strain. With such a drastic reduction in population, the human hand that constantly shaped and managed the landscape was withdrawn.
And the jungle just came back.
The jungle came back. The relentless growth of the rainforest is incredibly powerful, incredibly fast. Without constant human activity clearing, building, farming the earthen platforms, the roads, the agricultural works were quickly enveloped, covered by vegetation, then layers of soil over centuries, hiding them beneath that impenetrable green blanket. It's a very stark, somber reminder of the immense human cost of colonial expansion and the devastating, even if initially unintentional, impact of disease.
A profound tragedy, really, that shaped not just the human history of the Amazon, but also our whole perception of it for centuries. Which brings us right up to the present day. We're finally uncovering these incredible historical treasures, these ghosts of lost cities, but they face new threats now, don't they?
They do, urgently. The biggest contemporary danger, perhaps ironically, is deforestation.
How is deforestation the threat now? Isn't clearing the forest how we find things?
Well, that's the paradox. While LiDAR allows us to see through the trees, the physical clearing of the forest itself is incredibly destructive to the very sites we're trying to find and study. The Amazon is being cleared at an alarming rate for industrial agriculture. Huge cattle ranches, massive soy plantations, plus logging, mining, road building, other development projects. When that heavy machinery comes in, when the land is plowed, these fragile archaeological remains, which are often subtle earthworks just beneath the surface, they aren't just exposed, they can be completely obliterated, wiped out in an instant, all before they can even be properly mapped, studied, or protected. It's a race against time, truly, to discover and preserve these sites before they're lost forever, this time to modern activity.
Wow. It's a desperate race against time then, isn't it? We're finally seeing these incredible places, finally starting to understand the real history, but they're under immediate existential threat from us now. So how do we protect them? Is there hope? Can we actually learn from this heritage and preserve it?
There absolutely is hope, and a lot of it comes through new kinds of collaborative efforts, a different approach to archaeology itself. A great example is projects like one called Amazonia Revelada, which means revealed Amazon. What's really innovative and crucial about this kind of approach is that it combines that cutting-edge LiDAR technology with the invaluable indigenous knowledge of the local communities living in these areas today.
Indigenous knowledge. How does that help?
It's absolutely key. This isn't just about archaeologists from outside flying over, scanning, and then leaving. It's about actively engaging with the people who have lived in these regions for generations, whose ancestors may well have built these very cities, and who hold centuries of accumulated wisdom about the landscape, its history, its sacred places, its subtle features. They often know where things are or have oral traditions that hint at past settlements. They understand the environment in ways scientists are only beginning to grasp.
So this collaboration is vital, not just for finding sites, but for protecting them too.
Yeah, exactly. Local and indigenous communities can guide researchers to promising areas. They can provide crucial context for interpreting the LiDAR data and the archaeological findings. And importantly, they can become essential partners in the stewardship and long-term protection of these newly revealed sites. It's their heritage, too, after all. It's a far more respectful, ethical, and ultimately more effective approach. It recognizes the deep, ongoing connection between the land and its ancestral inhabitants. It transforms archaeology from maybe a purely external pursuit into a shared journey of rediscovery and guardianship.
That makes so much sense, integrating the technology with the human knowledge on the ground.
Precisely. This integration isn't just about efficiency in finding sites. It's about a more holistic, respectful, and sustainable way of doing archaeology and managing cultural heritage. These communities have unique perspectives, unique rights, and their active involvement is crucial for long-term preservation and true understanding. It shifts the paradigm from discovery by outsiders to collaborative rediscovery and shared responsibility.
Okay, so all of these incredible revelations, the Upano Valley's garden cities, the Llanos de Mojo's low-density urbanism, the Terra Preta, it all brings us back to that overarching theme, doesn't it? How these discoveries fundamentally challenge our traditional, maybe very Western-centric definitions of civilization and urbanism.
They really do. Historically, our image of what constitutes a city has been heavily shaped by examples like, say, ancient Rome or Athens, or the big stone cities of Mesoamerica like Teotihuacan or Chichen Itza. We think of high-density populations, monumental stone architecture, temples, pyramids, clearly defined urban cores surrounded by hinterlands.
Right, that's kind of the classic picture.
But the Amazonian cities, they offer a radically different model. They showcase, in many cases, these low-density, sustainable cities, vast, sprawling settlements that were often deeply integrated with their environment, rather than dominating it in the way a stone city might seem to. They were built largely from earth and organic materials, which leave a different, much more subtle archaeological footprint. They force us to redefine what we consider urban, to recognize that complexity doesn't always look the same everywhere.
Yeah, it's like peeling back this layer of history we didn't even know existed, and it forces us to reconsider what civilization actually means. It's clearly not just about towering stone structures or packing people into one central spot.
Not at all. These discoveries compel us to broaden our understanding of human ingenuity, human adaptation. The Amazon was definitively not empty, as was believed for so long. Instead, it appears to have been a vibrant hub of urban ingenuity, a dynamic landscape profoundly shaped by sophisticated human societies for millennia. They supported complex social structures, they had advanced understandings of agriculture, hydraulic engineering, resource management, all tailored to their specific environment. They developed unique, often highly sustainable solutions, demonstrating a different yet equally sophisticated path to urban living that we're only just beginning to truly appreciate.
It kind of blows your mind thinking about it that way.
It does. And connecting this to the bigger picture, these discoveries are profoundly broadening our whole understanding of human achievement. The sheer diversity of sophisticated societies that have existed, they demonstrate that complexity takes many forms, beautifully adapted to specific places. They challenge that old, maybe simplistic idea of a single linear path to progress or urbanism. These were civilizations that mastered their specific ecosystems in ways that maybe Western models didn't recognize or value until now. And the implications are huge as LIDAR continues to scan more uncharted regions, as we get better at interpreting the data, as we collaborate more with indigenous communities. There are likely many more ghosts of these lost cities waiting to be discovered, patiently whispering of a vibrant, complex past that's finally being brought into the light. This isn't just about correcting the history books, it's about revising our fundamental understanding of human potential.
So just to recap our journey today, we started with those dismissed myths, El Dorado, lost city of Z-Tales once seen as pure fantasy. Then we saw how the revolutionary technology of LiDAR arrived, this game changer, giving us the tools to finally see beneath that dense Amazonian canopy. We explored the incredible Lupano culture in Ecuador, that vast network of garden cities, the meticulous planning, thousands of earthen platforms thriving for over 1,000 years. Then we shifted to Bolivia, to the Casarabi culture, their unique low-density urbanism spread across huge wetlands, ingeniously sustained by that miracle of terra preta, the ultimate ancient bioengineered supersoil that just shattered old assumptions about the Amazon's fertility.
We saw how these amazing archaeological breakthroughs are now validating those early European historical accounts, reports that were written off for centuries as just exaggeration, proving they were actually describing a witnessed reality. We then had to confront the tragic story of how devastating European diseases and the disruption of colonialism led to the rapid collapse and disappearance of these vibrant societies, allowing the jungle to reclaim them, hiding them from memory. And finally, we touched on the urgent modern threats, primarily deforestation that endanger these newly revealed sites even as we find them, and the crucial hopeful efforts like Amazonia Revelada that combine technology with invaluable indigenous knowledge to protect what remains and discover what else might still be hidden.
And maybe most importantly, this whole deep dive has really challenged us, and hopefully you listening, to fundamentally rethink what civilization means. It's clearly not just about stone monuments or dense city centers. It's about ingenuity, adaptation, sustainable living, and developing a deep, intelligent understanding of your specific environment. The Amazon's human past is just so much richer, so much more complex, and far more urban than we ever imagined, a powerful testament to the diverse paths of human achievement.
Yeah, and this deep dive into the Amazon's lost cities, it isn't just about archaeology, is it? Or just correcting history. It's really about the nature of discovery itself. And maybe the humility we need to constantly reevaluate what we think we know when new evidence comes along. It leaves us with a really powerful thought, I think. What other foundational assumptions are we holding on to right now about human history, about our planet, maybe even about ourselves, that new perspectives or new technologies could completely overturn tomorrow?
That's a great point. If such vast, sophisticated societies could remain hidden for centuries in one of the planet's most iconic, seemingly known landscapes,
Exactly. What other profound histories might be lying just beneath the surface, all around us, just waiting for us to develop the right tools, or maybe just open our minds enough to finally find them?
and for you the question really becomes, what else is out there waiting to be found that could completely change our understanding of history and maybe even of ourselves? Something truly fascinating to mull over until our next deep dive.